Hello, folks. Welcome to Rational Science, directly from Frankfurt, Germany. And today we're going to be doing more or less what we've done lately, and that's I'm going to divide the lecture in three parts. First part, I'm going to be dealing with extinction, extinction of man. Second part, I'll be doing quantum computers. So if you're interested in quantum computing, well, stick around. You might learn something. And finally, I'm going to answer questions that people ask throughout the week. Okay, in fact, I'm going to start with a question someone just asked because it sets the tone in a certain way, right? Says, does the world really need saving? Does the world need saving? In other words, if humans are going to become extinct, maybe we can do something about it. Maybe it'll never happen. Maybe it's going to be so far out into the future that none of us need to worry. There's different possibilities. And this fellow says, does the world need saving? The answer is that it's irrelevant whether the world needs saving, whether we can save it, whether we should save it. We can't do anything about extinction. Mother Nature, so to speak, programs the extinction of a species when she spawns it. Okay, so every species will eventually go extinct. Some sooner than others, but they all go extinct. And whatever kills them, I'm saying, has to do with the vitals. Some people think that humans are not animals. Well, some of us are. But people have this notion that because we have intelligence, right, that we're not really animals, that we are so different than the rest of the animal kingdom that for all practical purposes, we are not animals. That's their reasoning. And I'm saying that we got to revise that very carefully. We are animals. And what proves it, what defines us as animals, what puts us in that category are what I call the vitals. Okay, we breathe, we eat, we drink, we sleep, we have sex. Maybe not all animals have sex. I think they all do in one way or another. Even plants have sex. We are living entities, and as living entities, we kind of categorize the living entities. We're not rocks or minerals. We're not plants, we're not trees or flowers. We belong in the animal kingdom. There is no other kingdom other than those. so maybe anaerobic systems, whatever, but we are living entities, and within that we fit within the animal kingdoms. More specifically, they put us within the mammal kingdom, or order or whatever. So we are animals, we are mammals, okay? And what puts us there are the vitals. And what I'm saying is Mother Nature produces extinction through the vitals. She attacks one of those, or she programs one of those to get rid of us. Not only us, but any species for that matter. So yeah, that's where we have to set our eyes on. And people, paleontologists and so on, geneticists, they came up with all these theories for extinction of animals in the past involving volcanoes, involving asteroids, comets, supernovas, big catastrophic events. That's all they could think about. And no, I'm saying it all happens through the vitals. And we can't do anything about the vitals. We must eat, we must drink. I don't know if we have to have sex, if we might have to sleep. I think we do. I don't think you can live without sleeping. Okay, but that's debatable under some people might debate that. I think what's beyond debate is you need to eat and drink. Those are the most fundamental behaviors, habits that absolutely all living entities have. Plants have them, animals have them. We all have those two vital. We all need those two vital. We need to eat and drink. And so I'm saying those are the two that Mother Nature uses to get rid of us. Something happens to our eating, something happens to our drinking. Air, we can say we can take for granted. I mean, nobody has bottled air yet, so I don't think it's going to come through the air. Okay, it's not through the airwaves. Okay, so let's get on with the first issue that someone raised. Okay, it's related to extinction again, and so this person asked the following. He says, how can a concept, money, cause an object to go extinct? People produce things all the time for no money. We only use the concept of money to make trade more efficient. Okay? Hate on money all you want. No, I'm not hating money. I love money just as much as anyone else. I need it. Guy says, do we need extinction? I don't know about extinction, but we need to do something about money. Its ending will not cause the extinction of man. The sun will. That means that they say that the sun is going to last another 5 billion years. It's been around for 5 billion. It's going to last another 5 billion. They say it's at its halfway mark. So you're saying we're going to live another 5 billion years as a species on this planet. We lived only, maybe 200, 300,000 years. And now we're going to live 5 billion more years, or 5 billion years total. That's kind of weird to think that we're going to live that long. I mean, for all practical purposes, that's an eternity. And we're going to be on this little planet, which we can't get out of. We cannot go out of the solar system. We cannot conquer, colonize another star system. The nearest star system, for example, Alpha Centauri. Centauri has 3 stars, Alpha, Beta, and Proxima. Proxima is the nearest star. They say that Beta Centauri is the most similar to the Sun. So let's assume Beta is the proper candidate. Maybe it's got some Earth-like planet orbiting around it. Are we ever going to go to Beta? And I'm saying no, we have no chance whatsoever of traveling to the nearest star. Alive. Okay, I'll clarify that. Alive, okay? We're not going to make it there alive, even if we do this intergenerational traveling on a torus, a spinning torus. Anyway, you twist and turn it, we're never going to make it to the nearest star, okay? And of course, you would have to use some magical stuff like general relativity, going through the 4th dimension and that kind of thing. To say that how to get there, in a jiffy. Okay, we make it through the time dimension. It's got to be some weird thing like that. You can't do it normally. You can't do it with humans, getting on a ship and going out there. No way, no how. So we're never going to go out of the solar system. I doubt we'll ever get even to Mars. We might make it to Mars. There's a chance there. But for what? For colonization? Are we going to evacuate all the prisons and move all the prisoners out there and say, look, this is our outpost, the outpost prison. You guys are going to live in Mars from now on. No, we're never going to colonize Mars. If anything, we visit. It could happen. It might. But we're not going to settle. Okay? We're going to die here on Earth. And so are we going to live for 5 billion years here on this little planet with population decreasing as population birth rate, decreasing to a point where even in this century we're going to reach 0 population growth. We're not going to expand globally in our population. And we're going to be doing this, we're going to stay like that for 5 billion years. It's kind of weird that you would think that way. So what do I answer? Well, he says, how can a concept, money, cause an object to go extinct? Well, what causes you to go extinct is food, not the concept. We're talking about real stuff. The stuff you put in your mouth goes through your stomach and out the other end. And we're talking about that kind of stuff. So it's stuff that's going to kill us, because if you don't have that, if you don't have something to eat or drink for that matter, not to mention air, but we're going to discount air. If you can't eat or drink, you are going to die. And if the whole population on Earth, all 8 billion of us, can't eat or drink for whatever reason, okay, we die because something physical did not enter our bodies. Turns out that we produce it with money. which is a concept. So our mere existence, our survival, whatever you want to call it, our extinction, all depends on food, which is standing on a concept, which is built or constructed upon a concept. Makes you kind of wonder about that, you know? It already, the production of all this and the distribution of food relies on a concept. And let me give you, for instance, here uh, well, let me give you first a little story before I go into this one. Um, you talk about concepts, okay? You say, well, am I saying that a concept maintains us alive, and if the concept disappears, we disappear? Well, concepts have a way of materializing. You know, you have debt, okay? You owe the bank money, you owe the credit card company, you owe the mortgage company, whoever, you owe money, right? It's a concept. Here's this concept running around, just a number out there. You receive a bill every month. Maybe you don't even receive a paper. You see it on the internet. It's a number. And because of that concept, you jump up and down. You get a second job. Maybe you marry so that you pool your resources together with your wife. You know, you do whatever you need to do. You jump around because of this concept, this number that's in a computer. You know, it's got consequences. And because of those consequences that you foresee coming if you default on your payments or whatever, you're jumping around, you're standing on your head, you're getting a second job, you know, you do whatever's needed. Maybe you rob a bank, maybe you kill someone and steal from them, maybe you kill your grandfather so you can inherit. You do all these things for this concept. Now, isn't that scary? A concept is governing you. It's the remote control that moves you around. So weird. But here, this is what I wanted to show you, okay? Here's a bridge, okay? And you're going to construct it up in the air, okay? It's gazillions of miles above the earth, right? You're going to construct this bridge and you put it over the concept mass. Mass is holding the bridge up above the clouds. Would you walk on that bridge? I mean, its foundations are sitting on mass. Kind of scary, isn't that? And here's our situation today, okay? We have food, all these items of food, and they're real, and they're sitting on this concept we call money. Now, money there, I made it tangible, you know, bills, but really today it's almost all abstract. It's just a number in a computer. That's what 99% of the money is out there. It's just a bunch of numbers in a computer. And let's hope no hacker gets to that and wipes all the accounts on Earth, you know, from the record, because I don't know what we all would do if someone just goes in there and goes blip, turns everything to zero, which is what some hackers might try to do. Okay, and yeah, we need to fill our bellies with all this food, and all this food just sits on money, and it only gets produced and distributed because of money. So yeah, in a way, you're saying a concept kills us. Yeah, indirectly, because the concept produces the object. Okay, and right now, maybe in advanced nations, 85% of those economies are all services. A lot of them lately, you know, becoming internet services. You know, a computer guy, he does programming, or he creates an ad, or does commercialism, or sells information, or whatever. You know, it's all a concept, and 85% of that are services that we have in our economy, both in labor and in GDP, as a percentage of GDP. And that produces the very little 1% of agriculture, which keeps us all alive, because it produces and distributes the vitals that we need to stay alive one more day. Now, isn't that you should sit back and think for a minute, you know, the situation here. This is a little different than it was 50,000 years ago, where, you know, we went out into the plains, saw a mammoth or whatever, and just killed it, you know, threw a lance, killed it, and we had food for a week for the whole clan. We were in direct contact with the food, and the food outnumbered us naturally. Mother Nature says, we're going to produce all these buffaloes, all these mammoths, whatever we had out there, that we hunted, and it produced tons of it. So there was maybe a 10-to-1 relationship between the amount of food, usually herbivores, with respect to the apex predators, which was us. That's a different story than what we have today. Today, food has become a Goldilocks type commodity. Okay, it's just right. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that you can't produce too much of it, because if you do, well, the price goes down. It's cheap, and maybe not everybody wants it. Like, you have an apple orchard in California. So you hire a bunch of Mexicans, they cross the borders, they're wetbacks, okay? You pay them, I don't know, $5 an hour, and you tell them, go pull all my apples from every single tree. Okay, so you pull them all out. You pay these guys to do that, okay? And now you put it on the market. Turns out they only buy, the public out there only buys maybe 20% of them. Most people maybe don't want apples or they eat something else. And so you only sell 20% of your apples. So why did you produce 100% of your apples, paying all these guys more time than necessary to pull them off the trees and then distribute them, take them to the distributor. In other words, you have to ship them out, right? Box them maybe, whatever. Why did you do all that work, pay all this money when they only bought 20% of your product? And very cheap because there were so many apples that they were 10 cents a piece. I think what you would like to do is pay your workers a little less, a lot less if you can, have them work less hours, pull only 20% of your apples out, so that once you did your market, you study in the market of how much apples you really or realistically plan to sell. You pull only 20% of your apples out. That's what you put on the market. That's what you sell. And you sell them not at 10 cents a piece. You sell them at maybe $1 or whatever a piece. That's the way it's done. And so, we produce food in that way. We produce only so much food on Earth. We could produce a lot more if we wanted to, but what would we do with the excess? So what we do is we produce enough food that we know is going to be bought out there, and that's a function directly of population. We don't produce twice as much food as we produce today because we only have 8 billion people, so we don't produce food for 16 billion people. Because for one, we're doing overwork that, and most of that product will go extinct, sit on the shelves and die, get rotten, and the other one is going to pull the price down. So it's the supply and demand curve, standard supply and demand curve. And so, yeah, Goldilocks food is a Goldilocks type of commodity. You produce just enough of what you need to feed the populations, and it's a peg to the population. Okay, so we're not going to produce more than necessary. And incidentally, let me just put this up here: the difference between rich and the wealthy. Okay, you have a rich person and you have a wealthy person. If you look up these two words, they're synonyms. Well, for many years I proposed a difference between these two words. Okay, and so here it is. Rich guy is a guy who has money, who has liquidity. Wealthy is a person who has things. Now, you can sell things and become rich, and you can buy things and become wealthy. Okay, so there's a cross between those, but I want to keep those two words separately. Rich is a guy who has money, and wealthy is a guy who has things. And you can imagine what that has to do with our extinction theory. Okay, we have the rich and the wealthy. You could be rich and not have a single carrot to eat, and so you're not wealthy. Okay, now maybe you say, well, I can buy one. Well, that's if the guy who has the carrot is willing to sell you his carrot for your $1,000,000, which are worthless pieces of paper or maybe just a number in a computer. So you say, I'm going to transfer $1,000,000 to you. Well, he said, well, that's just a number. I don't care for that. I'm going to stay with my carrot. Okay? So keep all this in mind. Factor it into your notions of extinction. And here's the bottom line. Okay? This is the future. The haves versus the have-nots. Okay? This is what it is. The haves are going to be the people who have food. And the have-nots will be people who don't have food, and they're known as the dead. Okay? So that's my take on that. Take it as far as you want. Okay? But that's the way I look at it. Okay, another issue along the same lines. Okay, fellow asked last time. I get this thing up here. Hold it. Give me a second. Okay, he said, I don't follow the causal chain of your theory of man's extinction. How does decreasing genetic diversity and population lead man through his own policies to destroy his economy? Okay, that's the bottom line. That is the question. Okay, it is. So that's the question we try to answer here. Okay, so how do you look at this? Okay, let me show you an outline of the mechanism. Now there's two mechanisms and they should not be confused. Okay, the first mechanism is what I call the mechanism of a background extinction. Background extinction is when one species all by itself disappears. Okay, goes extinct. The other one is the mass extinction. And that's when many species, maybe a whole order, okay, what I call an entire food chain, that disappears. And the mechanisms behind each one of these is different. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to mention, just overall. Then the other thing you need to know is that the mass extinction is founded upon the mechanism of the background extinction, which is what this gentleman put here. Okay, he says, look, we have this production, this population issue. How does that relate to the mass extinction? How do we tie them together? Okay, so that's where we're headed here. Okay, here's the mechanism. Okay, and again, this is just an outline, just so you can see the train of thought. Okay, on the left we have the background extinction, and these involve biological factors, typically what I call the vitals. Okay, and here we have the first one. We're going to have, in the case of man, okay, I'm applying this to man, but this applies really to any species. It happens when many individuals of a given species develop in a given region. In our human society, we call it cities, population explosion, metropolitan area, etc. Everybody moves there. We call that the transition. It's a process where people move from the country to the city. Okay, and this was a predictable, unavoidable transition or phenomenon. There was no way we could have avoided eventually moving to the cities. As intelligent as we are, as smart as we are, as we can foresee the future, we could not have avoided this, moving to the cities. And this triggered what we call density-dependent birth rates. When we move to the cities, we stop having children. Okay? We stop having children for social, cultural, economic, several reasons. Okay, and I'm not going to go into detail here. I'm just saying that we get into density-dependent birth rates. That means that we stop having children at the same rate that we had in the country. And the total population, and I'm talking about global population here, starts approaching, grows asymptotically. Okay, it approaches a plateau. Okay, so population grows asymptotically, and what we have superposed upon that, we have thousands of years of inbreeding. We have been having sex and children with each other. And we've been doing that for maybe 200, 300,000 years, more or less. So because of doing that, we have lost our genetic diversity. We have little genetic diversity in the human race. A Chinese man, even though he's got slanted eyes and he's different than the black man of Africa and different than a Russian who is white and so on, we all look differently superficially, but our genetics are almost identical. We are all clones of each other in so many other respects, especially what concerns diseases, our defenses against diseases, that we can say that all humans are essentially clones today, all 8 billion of us. And we descended from the 2.5 billion people that existed when I was born, that came out of the 1 billion people that were here maybe in 1820 or thereabouts. We descend from the 300 million that came out of the beginning of the Christian era, okay, and so on and so forth. We all come from a small group of people, and in fact, it's a percentage of those people because not all couples had children. So we've lost our genetic diversity pretty much, and we also get this population pyramid overturned because our population grows asymptotically. That means that we get older. We have more old people in our population mix, and fewer younger people. Okay, and so that's also part of the process. These are the factors that cause a background extinction, and a lot of this has to do with the fact that a species goes through this process of founder's effect followed by population crashes. Where a disease, war, whatever comes in our way kills many of us, and those who survive, they produce the next generation of humans. And what we're doing essentially is whittling out our diversity, our genetic diversity. Okay, that's the process for a background extinction in a nutshell. That's the outline. When we move to the right there, we see the mass extinction, and this has to do with economic factors. Now, what happens here? We have decreasing demand because we have fewer, what's happening on the left? We have fewer people. In other words, we're producing fewer people, meaning we're producing little demand or less demand for the future. We're going to have proportionally fewer grandchildren than our great-grandfathers had. Okay, so that's the first issue. And what is population? Population is demand, and demand is population. Okay, so corporations expect more sales next year. They hope to have more profits. What is more profits? What is more sales? It's demand. What is demand? Population. Okay? So, but on top of that, we throw efficiency. We're so smart that we're killing ourselves. We're creating all these machines, and we're doing innovation in the workforce where we introduce better ways of doing things, faster ways. And so we get rid of people that we don't need. We make our businesses more cost effective. Okay? And this drives the proletarians to live on subsistence wages. And on top of that, you can put that what's there on the next to the last line, which is unemployment and welfare. You got to keep these people alive still somehow. So those that work maintain those that don't work, and that's called welfare. So we introduce welfare measures or reduce the salaries of the proletarians so that they're barely at the minimum wage or slightly above. Okay. And on top of that, we have the fact that we lose real value of the money. I put the dollar sign there, but I mean money, okay? We have the government, devaluation because of debt, and so they create money, and that devalues the money as well, okay? We have the bankers casino, derivatives, they play around with your money, okay? So you give them money and say, please bet on number 5 at the roulette. Oh, okay, and that's what the bankers do. They invested in derivatives. What are derivatives? Well, a bunch of concepts, just a market out there where people just believe that things are going to get more expensive in the future or going to cost more, and so they invest in these things. Okay, we have service economy, manufacturing, and agriculture. What happens? The service economy has trumped manufacturing and agriculture. It's squeezing it out of GDP and out of labor. We're all becoming service providers. Okay, so that's also happening there. And then I covered unemployment and welfare. Again, I say that services is unemployment. It's masked unemployment. You are unemployed if you're in the service economy. and that's 85% of some of these advanced nations' economies. And then yeah, we don't have real global growth. Okay, so that's in a nutshell what I'm saying is the process that leads from population to the mass extinction. Okay, now in the case of the animals, okay, I'm sorry, yeah, in the case of the animals in the past, the extinctions in the past, how did that happen? Did they do it with money? Was there money involved? Was there a transaction, trade? No, we're one of the few animals in the world that trades. Okay, we don't do trading. Animals don't do trading. We do. We're a special type of animal. That's the way we produce our goods and produce 8 billion people thanks that we can, to the fact that we can support them. We can support them. Why? Because we can produce all this thanks to money. That's our system. Okay? Lion doesn't use that system. Lion uses his legs. That's his system. And his mouth. Okay? That's his system. He can live with that. We can't live with that. We don't hunt with our mouths anymore. We don't do it with our feet. We're slow animals. We don't have big teeth. No, we do it a different way. We do it the monkey way. We, corral animals and kill them at our leisure, and we corral plants, grow them at our leisure, and then kill them as well. Remember, plants are living entities. So for those vegetarians and vegans and whatever, yeah, you're killing plants. You're murdering them. You're ripping the skin of a banana. Little banana says, "Oh, please don't kill me, dear sir." And you say, "Oh, I'm going to rip your skin. I'm going to skin you alive." Skins the banana and goes, "Ah!" Goes the banana. Yeah, you're killing something that's living, no matter how you look at it. Okay, so we all kill things. You must kill to live. That's how Mother Nature planned it. Okay, God or Father Universe, whoever. Okay. Okay, so what's the deal with population? Well, this is the relationship maybe with our artificial economy, as I called it. Okay, and population. They more or less go together. Okay, and at some point we're going to reach a maximum population, which means we're going to reach a maximum growth in global economics. In other words, we cannot continue growing forever. Okay, we cannot have the economy of 16 billion people for only 8 billion people. Okay, the economy is proportional to population. Okay, so that's one issue, and that takes us back to. Let me show you this first. Okay, so this is our how the population grows. Okay, typically, and I was born in 1952. In those days, it was about 2.5 billion people on Earth, and in just almost 70 years, we've become 3 times as many. We're 7.5 to 8 billion people today. 3 times as many since I was born, and I like to put my pyramids upside down because I like to show them towards the future, and the future is always up. Time has a direction; it goes up in general relativity and quantum mechanics, always up. Okay, so there it is, and we're going to reach maybe 9 billion people. Maybe we'll never make it that far. I don't think we will. And what happens when we reach that plateau? Well, our economics is going to stop. The companies are not going to be selling more and more and more as they expect. They can't make projections for the next, 5-year plans. No such thing, because suddenly population has come to a stop. And so what happens now? Well, our economics, our global growth comes to a stop. We cannot have an economy of 16 billion people, whatever that number is, globally, GDP, whatever, for only 8 billion people or 9 billion, whatever. Okay, so these are things you got to factor. Okay, the macroeconomics is important in this case for those who believe in free will. Free willy, as I call them. There is no such thing as free will. You're a human that belongs in us humans, we're social animals, and you belong to a society, and that society has a certain economics. And yeah, you can do your little thing here and there as long as the global picture stays okay and progresses and moves upwards. But if the global system comes to a stop because we've reached maximum population, meaning we reach maximum economic growth, then the free willy cannot do his little thing out there because suddenly something from the outside is imposed upon him. More or less like I explained a minute ago, where, you are governed by a concept. You have a debt and you jump through your butt to try to pay it, and you say, but it's just a just a number. Why are you so worried? Why are you working overtime? Why are you robbing the bank and killing your grandfather to inherit money? You're doing all this for a concept? You're killing, you're murdering, you're stealing, you're working overtime, you're doing all these things for a concept? Yeah, these concepts have an effect over you because that's how our economic system works for humans. Okay, it doesn't work like that for lions. It doesn't work like that for others, but it does work for us like that. Okay, so yeah, concepts just move us around with their little pinkies. Sorry, with the little pinkies. Okay, it moves us around everywhere. Okay, moving on here. Fellow says, oh, sorry, that's the next one. Did I finish here? Something went wrong here. Give me a second. Let me get my bearings. Oh, I see what happened. I just wanted to show this. The birth rate, I think I showed that. Okay. Now, here's another issue the guy asked, another fellow asked. And it's there is no doubt that the corrupt governments are diverting their lockdown disaster with building justification for war with China and Russia. Will there be war between the United States and the other two superpowers? We got to wait and see, don't we? We don't know what's going to happen. But it could happen. And why would it happen? Would it happen because people like to go to war, the soldiers like to kill themselves or kill someone on the other side? Well, some of them might do, but it all comes down to economics. It has to do with interests and, gaining markets and that sort of thing. So war is a function of economics. In fact, a lot of people start wars, even through false flags, countries do. Why? Because it's profitable. It's got to do all with economics. Wars have always been for economic reasons, ultimately. There could have been religious factors poured in there, maybe racial factors. You can put anything you want in there. Countries, different countries, different people, different languages, social reasons. Ultimately, it was all for influence over economics. It was conquering markets. You stood in the way of the progress of one economy, and they said, we won't let you do that. We're going to send our army over. That's how it worked. Yes, it is true. We will probably see war in the next 6 years. Okay, it will not be just nukes. Okay, it will be with bioweapons. Okay, so we have nukes and bioweapons, both. He says humanity will not go extinct. Did he say that? He's saying we're going to be throwing the nukes at each other. We're not going to stop there. We're going to use everything at our disposal. Okay, so we're going to throw the bio weapons because we're not going to let the other side win. We have probably enough weapons on Earth to destroy each other. But the guy says even if we go to war and throw all these things at each other, humanity will not go extinct. For sure, we're going to disrupt all commerce, trade. Does every country have enough internal distribution system to be able to feed its population? Like overnight, like if war starts tomorrow, does every country have enough food internally to support its population? Will all these companies that produce and distribute food and other objects to exchange for food, right, ultimately, will they be able to maintain themselves without a world market today? See, World War II, even World War I, none of those were really on a global basis. We were not that interrelated globally. Today, international markets, international commerce is way more developed than it was in World War I or World War II. The next war is going to be a little different. Not only will we have nukes and bioweapons because nobody will want to lose, they're just going to throw the whole works at everybody else, but it's going to disrupt everything. It's going to disrupt all kinds of markets, internal and external both. No, if we have a third world war, it's like I think it was Einstein who says, I don't know how the third world war will be fought, but the fourth one will be fought with sticks and stones. Or maybe it was Khrushchev who said, I can't remember. Someone in the 50s said that. Okay, only your corrupt governments, as they have in the past, following a cycle that seems to follow the sun like a flower. Yeah. Um, I'm saying that if war comes, it's going to be a little different this time around. Okay. Okay. Another fellow, I think it's the same fellow, says, you said that the degeneration will be the end of us. No, but let's continue. I disagree and point to Pottinger's cats as an example. Covered that the other day. Review that quickly. Pottinger showed a nutrient deficient diet led to disease that compounded from generation to generation in cats. Okay, a disease. Okay. He reversed these diseases in cats with nutrient dense foods like whole raw milk. Well, that's like saying I have a disease and I had a headache. I took an aspirin and my headache went away. That's not a genetic issue. You haven't shown that. And again, proof is in the eye of the beholder. Some people criticize Pottinger, saying that his was unscientific, and you can look that up in the Wikipedia. There's a couple articles on that, and even Pottinger accepted to a certain extent that, well, maybe he went a little overboard on his conclusions. So, okay, yeah, whatever. But I'm looking at that last statement. Any degeneration can be reversed. And I'm saying, I don't think so. Okay. And here's an example. I'm just going to give you a couple examples. Degeneration will not be the end of us, first of all. Okay. I'm saying that economics will be the end of us, in our case, in the case of humans. But let's move on. Inbreeding would cause our extinction. But fortunately, the way I see it, okay, the global economics will collapse much sooner and spare us the agony of a slow death. See, background extinction is very slow. It takes several decades, hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, and gradually a species disappears because their population pyramid overturns, their genetics get wiped out, etc. So that takes a long time. Economics, that's almost immediate. And it's especially in the case of man. We've taken ourselves so much to the limit that we depend so much on money now to produce and distribute food, that the day that money disappears, that the global economy collapses, meaning money will be no more, meaning we will not accept money from someone else in exchange for the only thing of value, which will be food. That's when the economy collapses, and that's going to be very quick. It's not going to give you time to react. It's going to be in a matter of days, maybe weeks. That's it. And then genetic problems cannot be reversed, right? Let's find out. Can Downs be reversed? Down syndrome or any of those mental illnesses? Can homosexuality be reversed? Well, some people believe that it can, and it's a social issue that the guy was educated to be like that. Maybe he was mommy's little boy or whatever. I have a different opinion. I think that homosexuality is a genetic problem. The person is born that way. Can't do anything about it. That's my take on that. That's the assumption I work with. Okay. Do we have any cure for muscular dystrophy or any of these genetically caused physical problems? So we have the mental and the physical. The mental is ultimately a physical one because it's how the brain is structured. So it also could be called a physical problem. Okay. It's the organ we have in the head known as the brain, and whoever suffers from some kind of mental problem ultimately has a physical problem as well. Can we reverse these if they are genetically caused? In other words, if you're born that way? And my answer is no. You cannot reverse that. I don't care what you bombard the guy with. Okay, and then you have deleterious mutations. They decrease fitness of an organism. Okay, so you're not prepared to handle certain diseases. Hold it, got this one wrong. In fact, I knew a girl, Miriam, her name was, and she lacked a chromosome. She had 22 chromosomes only. Terrible stuff. And she inherited it from her father, who had the same problem. And he didn't find out until he was later on, later in life. She didn't find out until I think in her teens when her father had the problem. And she missed this chromosome, and because of that, all her muscles were going dead. And she got to a point where she wasn't able to lift her arms. Terrible disease, and it's genetic. Now, think about it. She's got all these muscles in her body. The muscles are built with cells. Cells are built with gazillions of muscles are built with gazillions of cells. Gazillions of cells. Each one is built with gazillions of molecules, DNA, RNA, etc. Something's wrong in her chromosomes. Are they going to remove a little piece out of there or put another chromosome in each one of her molecules, in each one of her cells to get her to be normal again? Is that possible? Well, I don't know. Maybe in the future, after we're all dead. I don't think that's possible. It's got to be a very sophisticated machine. You put her in there, and it goes, boom, boom, it just bombards her. Machine guns her with all these chromosomes in the right place. I don't think so. Okay. Anyways, I think you cannot reverse anything that's genetically has a genetic origin. Okay. Next issue. Moving on here. Oh, get in here. Okay. Laugh out loud. I wasn't totally serious with the dino gravity hypothesis. I first heard of it from creationists, I think, or electric universe types. Okay, but I've always liked the idea. Well, you either like it or you don't. Okay, it's a black or white issue. If you like it, well, defend it. If you don't, you don't. Okay, the sheer size of many dinosaurs does seem almost paranormal to us now, and I like the idea of gravity fluctuating. I thought Bill might appreciate it for at least being original. I had heard already of the gravity theory as well, and you have another one like egg predation, and those get on the Wikipedia. Someone publishes something, maybe saying, "Oh, I'm the first one to come up with this," and it's a nonsense theory, but they're the first one to publish, and they get it. Someone mentions it on the Wikipedia, maybe on the Extinction list, so or maybe in some blogs out there or whatever, and people say, "Well, there's all these theories." No, those aren't theories. Those are people who just want to get their names on the books and say, "I'm the first one who came up with the gravity theory or with the egg predation theory." That's nonsense. Those people don't have half a brain. Okay, and so yeah, you got to answer why the mosasaurs. They were in the water. They're not affected by gravity, not nearly as much as we are. Birds up there, you had the pterosaurs, flying reptiles. They died. The what is it? The birds did not. Many birds did not. So you got to explain that. You got to explain why some reptiles died, or especially the ones in the water, which are not affected by gravity nearly as much as the ones on land. So it's not a theory that you can apply across the board. And if you cannot, it's an invalid theory. It's just people who want to get their names in the books. That's it. There's not much more to say about that than that. And again, if you're going to vouch for a theory, even half-assed, no problem. But then go all the way, either defend it or say, no, it's nonsense, and reject, never mention it again. Hopefully you go to the guy, the Wikipedia, and take it out of there. Take all these theories that cannot be right, cannot have no chance whatsoever, pull them out of the books. Put the guy's name out of there. Why say, oh, Joe Blow is the first one who came up with the gravity theory. Jane Doe was the first one who came up with the egg predation theory. What is that? Nonsense. Okay, just want to make sure people understand that we encourage people to do Extinction 101 before they do Extinction 102. Extinction 101 is animals in the past, actual extinctions that happen. If you're a religious person, you may not believe in that. If you're a fundamental Christian or whatever, you may not think that animals died in the past, those that we find in the rock, because you don't believe that those rocks took that much time to be made by God. And if you find someone down there, well, it was just only 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, and that's not a dinosaur, it's what is it, an elephant that's had arthritis. Now, you can come up with all kinds of theories out there, and some people don't believe in that. But for those who are a little more rational and they acknowledge that we find bones dated to 65 million years ago in the case of the dinosaurs, and that yes, it took that long a time for those mountains to build or for the material to pile up on top and go through all this earth activity. Okay, yeah, if you understand that, then you got to explain those bones. You got to explain how those bones disappeared. And the main thing here is selectivity. You got to explain how the dinos disappeared, the whole order, and left the mammals alive. You got to come up with a mechanism that kills one, what I call food chain. You can call it whatever you want, and leaves another food chain rolling as if nothing. Okay. Once you've explained the mass extinction, not only of the dinosaurs, but of all of them, Triassic archosaurs, the Permian mammal-like reptiles, especially at the end, 252 million years ago, there were like two extinctions during the Permian. And then, or backward, if you go even further back, like the Carboniferous, you got to explain all those extinctions, all those mass extinctions. You got to apply the cookie cutter. Something happened that happened to all of them, and it's the same thing. If you have a different theory for each one, well, that's already a big, somewhat of a problem. But as long as your theory can explain within a given extinction, within the Carboniferous or within the Permian era, right? If you can explain within that epoch how the animals on land, air, and sea disappeared more or less at the same time, okay, then you got a good clue on extinction, on mass extinction, on the mechanism of mass extinction. And so that's the next question here that I give as homework. And anyone is welcome to do the homework. And the homework is like this. It says, why did the fauna in the seas disappear at the same time, more or less, maybe 1,000, plus or minus 1,000 years, whatever, it doesn't matter, geologically, suddenly, geologically at the same time as the animals on land? And that, if you can figure that out, if you can figure out a mechanism that ties the animal in the land, on land, with the animal in the seas that died approximately at the same time, why did that happen at the same time? Could it be that they were all related to some kind of food chain, or maybe the plants that they ate started more or less at the same time in the past? Well, I don't want to give you any clues, but just answer the question. The homework is there for you to do, and you get a beer if you figure it out. Okay, let's move on to the lecture of today, and that's got to do with quantum computing, quantum computers. Okay, so let's start here. Quantum computers, what is this all about? Well, it must be something important, because this is where we start. All these countries are investing quite a bit of money, okay, in developing quantum computers. They're investing all kinds of money, and both private and government. It turns out that these numbers that you see there, that's for private, that's what's out there. Then you have the other stuff, the secret stuff that governments are doing in relation to quantum computing, but that doesn't get out there in the press. It's held under national security. Okay, so these are just the outward numbers. Okay, and you can see United States, China, and then you have a whole bunch of countries that form, especially the European Union. If you take all those together, just the western part there, they're more or less as big as the United States and China. So there's a heavy investment in quantum computing. Okay, and you say, well, why? Why would anyone want to do quantum computing? I mean, the computer you have at home, it's known as a classical computer. You have a 19th century computer there, okay? Uh, it's classical and it works just fine. It gives you more or less the speed. Sometimes you get problems. Yeah, I've had problems. Feel like smashing them to pieces. Um, but it works okay. I mean, it's good. Do I need a quantum computer? And if I do, why would I need a quantum computer? What is a quantum computer about? What are we doing all that? Why are these people or these private and government agency or organizations, why are they investing in quantum computer? You say, what's the future? Well, what do we mean by that? Well, what's going on here? Okay, and so here is, in a nutshell, what this is all about. Okay, what the quantum computers are about. And what they do is they're faster computing. Okay, that's probably the main point. It just does calculations a lot better. And so for some businesses or some lines of work, it helps. Like for example, it helps chemists develop chemical modeling. It creates new materials with programmed properties. And then you have high temperature, superconductivity, and superfluidity. Okay. So it's used in these general areas. Those are any businesses related to this kind of work. They would like to have quantum computing. Now, does that help you in any way? Well, other than speed, maybe quantum computer's not for you. I mean, yeah, I'd love to have a faster computer that as soon as I touch that key on the keyboard, it boom, it does something already, or has more memory or whatever. Right now, I can live with what I got, more or less. I could get maybe a better computer, sure. But do I need a quantum computer, a super duper computer that takes me to the other side of the universe and back in a second? Okay, maybe I do. I don't know. Maybe it'd be nice to have. We got to wait to see until they develop it. So, what is all this about? Really the question I want to answer today? Okay, because this is what we're about. We're not interested so much in technology. In fact, not at all. We're interested in science here. And so here's the question. Okay, question that I'm going to try to answer today. So if you came here to know a little bit about technology, you might be disappointed. Okay, sorry. Okay, and so here it is. This is the question I want to ask, or that I'm going to answer today. I'm going to try to answer today. Do quantum computers have anything at all to do with science? This is about science. We call it rational science. We want to do science here. And this issue came up because a fellow asked about this in one of the questions, so I turned his question into the lecture. Okay. Okay. So what is this quantum computing? What are we talking about here? Okay. Here it is in a nutshell. Okay. This is just a quick synthesis of what quantum computers or computing does, what we expect from it. Quantum computing is the exploitation of collective properties of quantum states. There's 50 states in the union. I don't know of any quantum state, but that's what they're talking about. What are these quantum states? What are we talking about? Such as superposition and entanglement. Okay, so we have superposition and entanglement. These are two quantum states. And what are we going to do with this? Well, the quantum computer is going to take advantage of these properties, behaviors. Okay, love it. Okay, let's find out. To perform computation. Okay, they solve computational problems substantially faster than classical computers, which is what I got. I got a 19th century computer, a classical one. Okay, since quantum came around, 20th century and upwards, we have now quantum computing. Okay, so essentially it's going to be faster. That's the bottom line. Some line items out there of the economy, some lines of work, they might require this speed for other reasons that help them develop more technology. But for me, or for you, it's probably just going to be speed. Fine. We welcome speed, no problem at all. But the question is, are quantum computers, is quantum computing a part of science? That's the issue we're going to answer. And here they're talking about two quantum states of which quantum computers take advantage, which are entanglement and superposition. So we got to get to the heart of those. We got to get to the bottom line there. Okay. Here's superposition. Okay. And then put it up here if I can get it there. Here's superposition. Okay. And you can see what it is. In quantum, an atom can be excited and not excited at all, both simultaneously. How do you explain that rationally to a human? That you have these two states in one where you can even call it standing still and moving. Can you do that at the same time? Can God be a concept and an object at the same time? Can he have shape and not have shape at the same time? How would you understand that? And same thing here. I mean, here it's got two superimposed states. One in which, it's got these two states, these two vibrations simultaneously. How can you explain this? I mean, maybe the guy can explain it, I don't know, but I don't know if a rational human can understand it. What is he talking about? I mean, this is just a statement. This is just saying it is so. Well, that's a description. You haven't told me how it does this. What is the mechanism? Okay, so this is superposition, okay? Founded on that, before we move on to entanglement, okay, which is the other state that they are going to take advantage of, we got to understand this notion of the qubit, okay? What the hell is a qubit? That's along my line of work. I worked in semiconductors, chips, okay, not potato chips, transistors, that sort of thing, semiconductors, okay? And this is along the same line. They say there are several types of quantum computers, quantum computing systems, okay? And the most widely used model is the quantum circuit, okay, based on the quantum bit or qubit, okay? So this is an important point that underlines especially the superposition aspect of quantum mechanics. It's known as the qubit. What is the qubit? Okay, a qubit can be in a 1 or 0 quantum state. Okay, what is this 1 or 0? I explained it in the past. I'm just going to go briefly here. A transistor is either on or it's off. Okay, so if it's got, for example, more than half a volt, it's on. If it got less than half a volt, it's a 0. And so you have all these lines crossing at a transistor. You have maybe the aluminum bus lines, and you got the polysilicon lines crossing them. And if they both carry a voltage that's over 5 volt, half a volt, then you have that transistor turns on. If it's less than that, it's a 0. So how can that transistor be both a 0 and a 1? This is the question. It's mind-boggling. How are you going to explain that the transistor is both on and off at the same time? Okay, let's continue. Maybe we find the answer. I don't want to prejudge. They're smarter than me. Okay, when it is okay, so it says a qubit can be in a 1 or 0 quantum state or in a superposition of the 1 and 0 states. Okay, great. Okay, when it is measured, it is always a 0 or a 1. Okay, only when it's measured. Before you measure, okay, it's going to be in both quantum states. So you see it there at the bottom. Under the classical computer, the transistor is either a 0 or a 1. We're down. We can't have it both. It's either 0 or the 1. But under the quantum computer, it's going to be both. Before you measure it, before you use it, before you do something with it, it's going to be in a 0 and a 1. So in the left, it's going to be 0 or 1, and the right, it's going to be a 0 and a 1. Okay. The probability of either outcome depends on the qubit's quantum state immediately prior to measurement or usage or whatever. So before you use it, it's going to be in this 0 and 1 state. Okay. Um, and so let's get to a little more into the definition of what a qubit is so that we understand this exactly what they want to say. They say a qubit, the basic unit of quantum information. And again, it's what they're talking about is a transistor in real terms. Okay, that's what we're talking about. A qubit is a two-state quantum mechanical system. It exhibits the irrational physical interpretations of quantum mechanics because it's going to use entanglement and it's going to use superposition, which is what we're covering here. Okay, in classical mechanics, a bit is in one state or the other, but in quantum mechanics, the qubit is allowed to be in a coherent superposition of both states simultaneously. See what these people are saying? You got a 0 and a 1 both at the same time. You have a transistor that is on and off, not or off, on and off at the same time before you measure it. Okay? My God, how do we explain that? Well, here's the explanation, that the typical explanation for this phenomenon, and it's known as Schrodinger's cat analogy, I guess that's what they call it. Okay, here it is. Okay, and what is it? Well, the cat, before you peek into the box, because you had, some poison in there in a vial, and it turns out that you're going to have a hammer break it, and this radiation comes out and kills the cat. But you don't know what's happening in there because you haven't looked in the box. It's when you open it, when you take the measurement, in other words, when you use your eyes, when you do an experiment, you go see and touch at the lab, that's when you know whether the cat is in one or the other state. It's either dead or it's either alive. That's how it comes out of the box. Okay? But before you peek into the box to find out what really happened inside there, the cat has both states. He's both dead and he's both alive. So I always ask, well, what if we remove all this other stuff that killed the cat? Okay, before we peek inside the box, is the cat alive or dead? I just put a cat in a box. He's alive. I don't open the box. Is he alive or dead in there? And these people say that quantum says he's both. And that's more or less the big problem we have here. There is no way to understand this under any circumstance. Not for a rational human being. Now, a mathematician, he's different. I mean, he can understand this stuff, but human beings cannot. Okay, so how about entanglement? Well, here's one fellow on the internet, prominent guy, and he has a little video there on YouTube. It says, Entanglement, the quantum around you. And he says, from the start, he's going to talk about entanglement. The first thing he says, I'm not going to be able to really explain what entanglement is. We don't know what superposition is. We cannot explain it in a rational manner. We have no idea what entanglement is. They cannot explain it in a rational manner. He's telling you, he's confessing up front. He's giving you the fine print up front, saying, oh, by the way, I cannot explain entanglement. And you say, well, why can't he? I mean, what is this thing, entanglement? Okay, so let's illustrate it so we know what we're talking about. What is entanglement? Here it is. I've shown this in the past. Here you have two atoms, or whatever, two particles, you can say. They're on opposite sides of the universe. So they're 100 million kilometers or 100 gazillion kilometers apart. And these people are saying that if one is moving clockwise, the other one is definitely moving counterclockwise in the other side of the universe. And if you happen to turn the first one from clockwise to counterclockwise or vice versa, the other one moves instantly in the opposite direction. Okay, so this is what quantum entanglement is about, and they say they have no explanation for this. And let me tell you why they don't have an explanation. And under the rope model, we can see why, and we can see also the answer of why this does happen. And here it is. Okay, the one on the top is the quantum version. There's nothing in between the two particles. So yeah, we cannot explain how one particle influences the other one instantaneously. And what they're saying is, well, it doesn't do that really. What it happens is, before you take the measurement, we already know. Mother Nature, Father Universe, God, whoever, the devil, one of those guys has already determined that the guy on the other side of the universe is opposite to the one on this side of the universe. It's already like that. Okay? So it doesn't matter if your particle is moving clockwise or counterclockwise. We know already through quantum, because Father Universe determined so, that the other one is in the opposite direction. The one is spinning in the opposite direction. Okay? And so when you take the measurement, you know not that something happened instantaneously across the universe, but you know that the other one is already moving in the opposite direction simply because it is so. Okay? Under the rope model, it's very simple. You know, a rope can spin in one direction clockwise or counterclockwise. If it's spinning clockwise from your end, from the other guy's end, it had better be spinning counterclockwise. See how easy it was? Yeah, you have to have a mediator to explain it rationally. And, always have my rope, and I'm saying, let's see if I can do this right. For you, it's moving, I think it's moving clockwise, because for me, it's moving counterclockwise. And if I move yours counterclockwise, okay, mine is now moving clockwise. So a rope can only move in one direction or the other one direction. And you say, well, can it do instantaneously? Isn't there like, I twirl my side of the rope until that signal reaches you? Is it still spinning on your side in the same direction as mine? Well, it's a little more complicated than that. You have ropes, electromagnetic ropes that are tied from the Andromeda galaxy 2.2 to 2.3 million light years away. And those are spinning, let's say they're spinning clockwise, okay? That rope is still spinning clockwise, and when you measure, the question is, are you measuring a single rope? Okay, are you affecting that rope? Or is that one just crossing by and going to another star somewhere far away? So the fact that you can tune into that because that rope happened to cross your atom and you happen to measure and you're doing clockwise on that, is that the same rope you measure the next second when you take a measurement again, especially when the Earth is moving around the sun and all the atoms in the universe are moving everywhere? So it's a little more complicated than that until we try to explain the phenomena, and we try to simply state that, oh, it does so, like they do so in quantum. We don't have an answer to that question. The only way we can do it is we analyze what we're doing in the lab, and we can't do that by seeing and touching because we can't see or touch the mediator of light. We can barely handle one atom at a time, which these people many times claim. The question is whether that is so. Are they doing that? Can they see an atom? If they can't see an atom, how do they know they're handling one at a time? Is this just their theory, their conclusion, their inference? Okay? Are they just concluding this? So there's a lot involved in that, and it's got to be done with rational people sitting down and exchanging ideas how entanglement is happening. But at least they have a starting point, which is, a rope can only turn clockwise or counterclockwise. That's it. And then we have to figure out which rope we're measuring at which time and whether everything moved in between. Okay, are we measuring the same rope? Okay, and then, a lot of the ropes that crisscross an atom, let alone the universe, but an atom, they're spinning in every direction possible because you have ropes that are counterclockwise, ropes that are clockwise, that are just going through an atom from a faraway star to another faraway star. So you got to look at what you're really doing, what you're measuring. These people measure and they don't even know what they're measuring because they can't see or touch the thing, and they say, oh, we've reached this conclusion. Well, yeah, that's based on the particle hypothesis. And of course, they cannot explain it with a particle hypothesis. So what does this guy say? Well, I cannot explain entanglement. Well, if you cannot explain entanglement, you're not a scientist, because what is science? Okay, or for that matter, superposition. You cannot explain superposition in a rational manner. Well, you got a problem, because what is science? And here we have it. We can put this thing up there. Here it is. Science, a systematic enterprise that builds and organizes knowledge. And this is their definition, not mine, by the way. I don't subscribe to this definition. It's got too many problems. But, we're using their own definitions here to find out if under their definition, quantum computing, qubit, entanglement, superposition, if those qualify as scientific behaviors or explanations or whatever. And it says that builds and organizes knowledge in the form of what? Testable explanations and predictions about the universe. And so if they cannot explain in a rational manner, how can they test the explanation? What they're testing is the description. They're describing something, but they're not explaining it. And so, no, entanglement and superposition, which underlie the qubit, okay, which underlies the quantum computing world, is not a scientific field. Anyone who gets into that is a technologist, not a scientist. And there you see technology. What is technology? Again, their definition. The sum of techniques, skills, methods, and processes used in the production of goods or services or in the accomplishment of objectives. Okay? We define it a little differently. We say that technology is developing gadgets by trial and error. Science is something else. What is science? Let's find out, and we'll find out in our conclusions here. Science is explanations. Okay, and here it is. Okay, these are my conclusions. Quantum computing has to do solely with technology. Okay, essentially faster computing. That's it. And a marketable word quantum is inserted to sell the concept. Okay, so they say, oh, it's not just a computer, it's quantum computing. And they say, oh, a lot of people out there will say, oh, the scientists have proven quantum. And how do you know? Well, you wouldn't have a computer if it weren't for quantum. And for sure, you wouldn't have a quantum computer if it weren't for quantum. And no, they're not talking about science. They're not talking about explanations. They're talking about technology, which has absolutely nothing to do with science. Why? Because science is explanations, and technology is developing gadgets by trial and error. Okay, so if you develop a gadget, in your lab, yeah, you don't have to know how it works really, or the underlying causes or mechanisms of the invisible stuff that underlies it, like magnetism or electricity. You don't have to understand the true, genuine mechanism that underlies light, gravity, electricity, magnetism. You don't have to understand that. You can develop the gadget because you have to do something that is handled by touch, which is what technology deals with. Technology deals with the see and touch. Science deals with the mind, with explaining rationally. That's where the difference is. Okay, so quantum has no rational explanations, physical interpretations for what? For entanglement, superposition, decoherence, qubit, none of that. They don't have a rational explanation. They have descriptions, and they tell you up front, we cannot explain it. We have no physical interpretation that you can understand. We cannot rationalize it. So they're not doing science if they cannot rationalize it. They are doing descriptions, they're doing technology, but they're not doing science. And so there's the conclusion really there for quantum computing has nothing at all to do with science, and anyone working in the development of quantum computers, quantum computing, is not a scientist. Okay? So for those people who think that these people are scientists, no, don't call them scientists. Call them technologists or whatever you want to call them. Okay, let's get down to the questions that people asked this week. Okay, we have a couple of them here. First one, fellow says, what is the origin of the word science? And in what sense is it used first time? Was it used the first time? Someone asked a question along the same line, so I'll address these two gentlemen together. Okay. Fellow asked a similar question. He says, philosophy, natural philosophy is the root of rational explanations, which is the business end of rational science, our line here, okay, our channel, which is composed of a set of facts or assumptions. What are your philosophical roots? Okay, so the questions here have to do with science and with, what is science, the definition of science, what is our notion of science, and of philosophy as well, because science, under our definition at least, includes philosophy. Philosophy is a branch of science under our notion of science out of this channel. Okay, so let's get that straight up front. So here are the answers to this. First one is that, let's put it over here. First one is this notion of natural philosophy. And the answer to that for first part is that natural philosophy died, you can say, in the 19th century. Okay, after that they started calling it science because they developed all these line items within the world of natural philosophy. So the term natural philosophy died down and today is used only by dissidents who cling on to the past, and they say, "Oh, natural philosophy." Isaac Newton, he called his book, natural philosophy, and so on. Yeah, this notion of natural philosophy came all the way from the Greeks, and it was heavily used in the 16th and 17th century, 18th century especially, and then it started dying in the 19th century. And here's a summary of that. Natural philosophy, or philosophy of nature, was the philosophical study of nature and the physical universe that was dominant before the development of modern science. 19th century, which we say is not modern science, it's also religion. It's a different branch of a religion. Why? Because modern so-called science is mathematics, mathematical physics, and that has to do with belief, with experiments, with predictions, with stuff that has nothing at all to do with science. Science is explanations. That's the difference. Okay, so these people are not scientists. Very few people in the world today are scientists. Who are those scientists? Those who can explain something. Now, those you can call scientists. But those who just do a description, mathematical especially, they're not scientists. Especially the people in quantum mechanics that describe, and they say, oh, qubit, oh, entanglement, oh, superposition. And you say, okay, what's the cause? How did it happen? Oh, we cannot explain it. But we can use it to develop computers. And we call those quantum computers. Entanglement computers, decoherent computers. What are they going to call them? Okay. It was in the 19th century that the concept of science received its modern shape, with new titles emerging such as biology, physics, physicists, etc. Okay, among other technical fields and titles, institutions and communities were founded, and unprecedented applications to and interactions with other aspects of society and culture occurred. Okay, so yeah, we should not use the term natural philosophy anymore. Usually it's dissidents, people who want to fight against the establishment. They want to bring back Newton and say, well, he called it natural philosophy. Yeah, you're using a term that's not only old-fashioned, but it does not apply. Science is fine, but we need to define science, and then we need to define the branches of science. And that's essentially what the first guy asked. What is science? Where did this come from? Okay. Okay, so let's move on here. And here we have it. Okay. These are the definitions we have today. And not one of them passes the test of science. Okay, not one of these is a scientific definition. These are taken out of the Wikipedia, but essentially more or less everybody defines these things in the same way. Science, a systematic enterprise that builds and organizes knowledge. No, science doesn't deal with knowledge at all, but that's what science means. The word science stands for knowledge. Okay, sire was the word that the Romans used, so that was the origin of that word. And it's got to do with the word knowledge. And the problem there is that no one's ever defined the word knowledge. No one knows what the word knowledge means today. In fact, we still are using variations of Plato's definition of the word knowledge, which is justified, true, belief. Knowledge is belief. If you know something, it means you believe something. And Plato just added in there that it's different than belief because you truly believe that it's true. So you might believe that, that God is here, and so that's your knowledge of God. And another guy might say that, no, there is no such thing as God. And so they have two different knowledges. They have two different beliefs. That's why we don't use the word knowledge in science. And even though the word science derives from the word knowledge, true, genuine knowledge, science has nothing to do with knowledge. That's where everyone from the Greeks using natural philosophy all the way to the word science that they use today, none of them ever did science. Science is something else. Science is explaining something. Why? Because it's objective. You give an objective explanation for the purposes of physics. We're talking about causes and mechanisms. You deal with objects there, and you explain something rationally to someone and say, look, this is the mechanism that I propose, that this is what's happening in this invisible, intangible world of Mother Nature's. The person understands your explanation, your mechanism, we're done. We're through with science. Now what continues is belief, knowledge, justified true belief, the old-fashioned knowledge, science. And the guy says, well, do you believe that that's what's happening in this invisible, intangible world that Mother Nature runs out there? Well, if you believe or not, that's your knowledge, that's your belief, that's your version of science. That's known as religion. It's just a belief. In science, we just explain objectively so the person understands and walks away. What he decides to believe in his dark basement is his personal opinion and does not concern science. It concerns religion. And if he forms a club with other similar-minded people, they have a congregation. It's called a religion. Okay? Philosophy. What is philosophy? Well, according to these people out there, right? The study of general and fundamental questions such as those about existence, reason, knowledge again, values, mind, and language. I like the fact that they include existence and knowledge. Knowledge has nothing to do with anything. Knowledge is just belief. When you know something, you just believe it. I know something differently. Okay? And existence is physics, has to do with physics. Physics is the science of existence, not philosophy. And so again, I think this person, when asking, what are your roots, philosophical roots, I think he's confusing philosophy with physics. It's got nothing to do with philosophy. It's got to do with laying the foundations of physics. Laying the foundations of physics is not philosophy. For any discipline, you need to lay the foundations of that discipline. Okay, and for physics, you need to lay the foundations. It's not called philosophy. Philosophy is something else. Philosophy, well, we'll get to that in a minute, but let's continue with physics here. Knowledge of nature. Again, knowledge has nothing to do with science. If physics is part of science, it has nothing to do with knowledge. It is the natural science. Okay, yeah, physics is part of science, but I don't know about natural, what that really means. That studies matter in motion and behavior through space and time and the related entities of energy and force. Now, in physics, we do not study energy or force. Energy and force are mathematical concepts. They have nothing to do with physics or with science. They have to do with measurement. They have to do with quantification of something. They have to do with equations, with descriptions, quantitative descriptions. They have nothing at all with explaining something. You cannot explain with anything coming out of math. Anything, any equation, any book ever written on mathematics has nothing to do with explanations, with physical interpretations. For that, you need objects, and for that, you need a different language. Math is a language of quantitative descriptions. The language you need for that, for explaining physical things, is you can use Spanish, you can use English, you can use Chinese, you can use Greek, Russian, whatever you want. It's got to be a language that can explain qualitatively. You need to explain qualitatively. You need to explain a mechanism. Okay? And so, our physics has nothing to do with energy or force. Genuine physics, the one that belongs to science, okay, has to do in explaining, some kind of explaining. You got to give a physical interpretation. And then it says the word studies. Okay, so I study. I study birds all day long. I didn't learn anything. I can't explain anything, but I studied. I studied for the test and I failed it. So does studying make you a physicist? So again, all these definitions are irrational. No one ever bothered to define these words properly. And so they have these definitions like, oh, it's a study. Study of what? Of knowledge, or accumulation of knowledge. Of what? Of energy and force. None of that has anything to do with science, with physics, with anything. It's got to do with religion. This has nothing to do with science. Okay? And I guess the only word that they hit there is motion, matter in motion. That could be it. That's as close as they got to it. Okay, so what is philosophy? If science is, or physics is study of physical objects and mechanisms, explanations of causes, okay? What is philosophy? Well, philosophy ain't philosophy. What we've done to this day known as philosophy, none of that belongs in philosophy. Philosophy is a branch of science, okay? And philosophy, explanations of reasons and purposes, okay? Now, under philosophy, you have many items today. And among them, you have this one. Why did someone do something? Okay, that is included in there. But then you have a lot of descriptions out there, a lot of opinions, recommendations, how to behave in life, what to eat. That's my philosophy, you know. And so people think that the word philosophy means any way of thinking. It's your way of thinking. It's your philosophy. We can't use that for anything in the world. That's like saying God is everything. Well, yeah, great. If God is everything, God is nothing, okay, essentially. And this is the same thing. If philosophy is just a way of thinking, then philosophy is nothing, is garbage. And how would you distinguish yourself from Aristotle? Why do you call him a philosopher? Why do you say, well, Aristotle was a Greek philosopher? Well, what are you, an English philosopher? I mean, you know, we're all philosophers if it's just a way of thinking. So the word philosophy would have no use whatsoever if we define it as a way of thinking, a recommendation, a belief. We all have belief. We all have recommendations. We all have political philosophies, religious philosophies. So that's not philosophy. You can't use that word. If you're going to go to the university and you say, well, what do you study? I study philosophy. Well, hopefully that subject matter has to be well defined so we know what you are. If you come out of there with a philosophy degree, you say, I got a PhD in philosophy, doctor in philosophy, okay? What are you? What did you learn? And what are you different than anyone else if philosophy is just a way of thinking? Okay, so we need to define it, and we define it as explanations of reasons and purposes, which is only a small branch of what philosophy is today. Today, the word philosophy includes everything that you can think of. And no, we don't do that in science. We have to give some real meaning to the word philosophy, and we cut it right there. We chop it there at explanation of reasons and purposes, which differs from physics, which is explanations of causes and mechanisms. Okay, for that, again, philosophy is not equal to the foundations of physics. Okay, that's not a philosophy. That's you need to lay the foundations of physics to know, to understand, to be able to explain what physics is about. You have to put limits to your discipline. For that, you have to establish the foundation. You want to be a doctor? Well, you need to know words such as, what is health, what is disease, etc. You want to be a lawyer? You need to know what law means, what punishment means, what, all the jail or whatever means. So you have a vocabulary in each discipline. In physics, you need a vocabulary as well, and for that, you have to define those terms, and those are the foundations of physics. That's not philosophy. Okay, so here's the definition of science so that you can see how this fits in. Okay, and science is divided in two parts, physics and philosophy. Okay, and the one on the left, physics, deals with objects and explains causes and mechanisms, while the one on the right primarily deals with concepts. Okay, or that's the bread and butter of philosophy, because you don't really need an object, you need concepts. You deal with concepts there. And what are you going to do? You're going to explain reasons and purpose. Okay, so this is the notion of science. And so, no, it's not what this fellow said. What are the foundation? What did he say? Philosophy, natural philosophy, was it? He says, yeah, what are your philosophical roots? And I guess he was referring to, what kind of opinions or recommendations you have or whatever. No, no, science is objective. So we have to define the terms that are going to underline our discipline so that we chop it very crisply. This is physics, this is philosophy. Those are the only two branches of science. And within those two branches, you have sub-branches. Okay, you have chemistry, I don't know, geology, maybe under physics. And a lot of these are, have their aspect of philosophy as well as, as the physical aspect. And then you have the philosophy on the other side. So that's it. It's very crisp, very straightforward. Anyone can understand it. You cannot understand science, philosophy, or physics under the definitions we have today because they never define these terms scientifically. They don't know how to define terms scientifically. That's the bottom line. This is what science is not. Okay. Here it is. So anything that falls on this list is not science. What science is not? Science, we do not observe. Okay? We kill the observers. We do it mafia style. We kill the witness. Okay? We don't study. Anybody can study. It doesn't mean he's a scientist, physicist, or philosopher for that matter. We don't collect data. We don't analyze data. We don't measure. We don't use equations. We don't make calculations, describe, present evidence. Never present evidence in science. Evidence is used to persuade the jury. That's known as religion. You're trying to convince people. You're going to try to change their minds. You change some of the jurors' minds. You don't change all of their minds. And so what do you do with the ones that didn't change their mind? You say they're not scientists because they didn't change their mind to fit yours. So again, all these things you got to consider, when you analyze what is science. Okay? So we don't present evidence. We don't do experiments. Why don't we do experiments? Because experiments, if anything, have to do with technology. But if you draw a conclusion from an experiment, just come with your conclusion, with your theory, your explanation. Don't come with an experiment because the only purpose of an experiment is to use as evidence to persuade the jury, which was what Michael Faraday did in the 1830s. He would go in there, do a little test, in front of people, and people would say, wow, look at that, magnetism, woo. Yeah, what? To convince the jury, just to wow the jury. That's all it was for. Okay? We don't demonstrate, again, okay? Prove, seek the truth. We don't seek the truth in science. The word truth has to do strictly with religion. Truth means you believe in something. You have knowledge, you have belief, you have the truth. Keep it. Keep it away from me. Keep your truth far away from me. We don't know how to persuade, convince, convert, or recruit people. That's religion. Okay? We don't believe or know, which are synonyms. We don't do that either. We don't know. We explain. We don't develop technology. We don't invent gadgets. We don't grant prizes. You have all these PhDs walking with their medals. Oh, I've got a Nobel medal. And he walks down the aisle, like a girl who won the beauty contest with her bouquet of roses, and she has these crocodile tears coming out of her eyes. Oh, I'm the most beautiful woman in the world. These guys go do the same thing. They walk with their medals, say, oh, I'm the most intelligent guy on earth. My God. That's what these so-called scientists have come down to. Today they kill for those medals. I want the medal. Keep it. I can get one for 10 cents at the store. It's not made of pure gold, but it's gold plated, maybe. So we do not grant prizes or win prizes. We do not censor theories. We want to hear as many as possible. Explanations? Hey, bring it on. Defend it. Okay, so it's the other way around. We do not censor theories. Quantum mechanics, general relativity, string theory, mathematical physics, essentially, they fear theories that do not match theirs, and they say, well, we've proven ours. Okay? And so if they've proven theirs, what are we researching? Looks like we're done. I mean, if they've proven it, right? They believe in it. They say it's a fact now. Then they deny it and say, well, it's not a fact, but we believe in it. And all the scientists in the world raise their hands. We all believe in it. Okay, so? It's like asking all the Christians to raise their hand. Do you believe in God? Yeah, I do believe in God. Okay. So have they proven God because they all raised their hands? How about the flat earthers? You know, they all raise their hands, so the earth is flat. So what they fear the most is losing that censorship capability. Okay, so we don't vote for theories. Science is not democratic. This is not a jury trial where you prove to the jury and the jury raises its hand and says the defendant is guilty. No, that's not the way we do it in science. Science, we present the case and then leave the courtroom. Then we go to church, and that's where we determine if the defendant is guilty or not guilty. Okay, we don't rely on authority, which is what 99% of humanity does. They say, oh, the scientists, they discovered, they invented, they proved. We don't do that in science. Science, every person is on his own. You got to go out there, and you can't use these guys as a reference. You cannot say, oh, Einstein said. That's authority. Is Einstein speaking, his ghost speaking through your mouth, or what? You got to make up your mind. Does that, what this guy said, make sense? Can you rationalize it? If you cannot rationalize it, you cannot say, well, Einstein said, you know, he told me, and he got a Nobel Prize, and you can't say that. Okay, so none of that belongs to science, but this is the circus in which these mathematicians turned science into. They turned science into a circus. It's all, giving prizes, medals, voting and saying, well, you know, the majority believes like this. And is that science? Or is science, look, I'm on my own. I don't have anyone. We're all alone in this island. It's you and me, kid. And I'm going to explain to you something so that you understand it. And I can't use the guy behind me because there is no one behind me. We're all alone on this island. It's you and me. It's up to you. You can't consult anyone either. You got to try to make sense of what I said and say, well, okay, that makes sense. And I have a different theory. Okay, what's your theory? And you have to defend that theory. That's science. But to say, well, all these scientists proved and they demonstrated in a lab, and you can't demonstrate in a lab what experiments, something that is invisible, intangible, such as light, magnetism, gravity. You can't do that. The only way you can do it is rationalizing it. For that, you need objects to explain the mechanism. Okay, and of course, we don't present witnesses or testify. What we do is we do it mafia style. We kill the witness so he doesn't testify. Okay, always in science, always kill the witness. Take a gun with you to the conference. As soon as someone introduces a witness, you shoot them down. Okay, tell them Bill Gates told you. Okay, one fellow says, he insists on touch. Okay, so he says the following. He says, let's suppose a man who rotates the stone tied with a rope, then definitely a stone hit with the air surrounding it. Okay, so he's saying that you have a ball or a stone, you have a rope going around because the ball is going around, and the rope, in this case the string, is hitting the air. That's what he's saying here, okay? Likewise, when magnetic threads spin, his language is not too great, but we'll work with it. Threads spin, it must be hit with the electromagnetic rope that come out of the magnet. Okay, the first thing I want to clarify there is, no, it's not ropes that come out and swing, okay, just in case. It's the thread. The rope opens up and the threads are the ones that are swinging. A lot of people don't understand that. They think it's rope swinging. No, it's thread swinging. It takes two threads, twine threads to make a rope. Okay? So the thread and rope are two different things. Try to keep that in mind. A lot of people don't understand that. They just kind of, superficially look at the theory, and they talk about ropes when they should be talking about threads, and vice versa. But you said that magnetic thread not hit with the electromagnetic rope. Exactly, goes right through. That come out of magnet because it's not the definition of object, correct? Okay, definition of object is not that which you can touch or see, which is what he's talking about. He's talking about hit. That's why I underline hit everywhere. You cannot see or touch the rope. Okay, you can only imagine it. You can visualize it. You can think about it. Okay, and you can explain with it. So you make an assumption. Okay, an assumption. What is an assumption? You make an assumption that all atoms in the universe are interconnected by a rope-like entity, a DNA-like entity, a chain-like entity. It's elongated, it unites two atoms. Okay? It's an assumption. It's known as an assumption. What is an assumption? It's something you propose in order to, so that the public understands your theory, the theory founded upon that assumption. So you have an assumption and you have an explanation. In order to explain, you have to begin with the assumptions. You mentioned the objects you're going to use. You're going to mention the initial scene, what picture they're visualizing, or maybe you just make a movie of it or whatever. You put it there and you say, okay, look at this movie, and these are the initial scenes. These are my assumptions. And then you go on, you make certain assumptions, then you move on to the theory. And your theory has to be based on those assumptions. The assumption here is that all atoms are interconnected by an electromagnetic rope. Looks more like this. My fists here are the atoms and a rope interconnection. That's the assumption. So far I haven't done anything with it. I'm making this assumption, okay? And then I'm saying, what is light? Well, light is a torsion of that rope. What is gravity? Well, a bunch of ropes that open up as one object drifts towards another, etc. You explain the theory, the mechanism. Okay, my point is, when we rotate stone tied with rope, then definitely a stone hit with the air surrounding it. Okay, yeah, we saw that. I'm assuming that when I rotate this, right, okay, there it goes. I'm assuming that the string here, okay, we'll call that the rope, is effectively hitting the air, the atoms of air, or the molecules of air that are around here. No problem. Likewise, when magnetic threads spin, it must be hit with the electromagnetic rope which comes out of the magnet. Electromagnetic rope cannot touch objects. Goes right through another rope, another thread, through an atom. Okay? How do I get that through to you? And why? Because an object is not that which has shape. An object is that which has shape. It's not that which you can touch or see. Okay? And here's I'm going to put this up again just for you specifically, so that you can see why you cannot touch the rope. One of the mechanisms. There's a couple more, but I'm just going to put this one, which I've shown in the past. Okay, you have 5 fingers, and we're going to look at a single atom of each finger. Okay, so we're talking about only 5 atoms. They're colored, I think, in greenish blue. Okay, so we have these atoms, and they're moving towards a ball. Okay, and the ball has all these atoms going right through that make it up, and you have the ropes that go right through it. And 3 of those ropes, you can see from 3 of the fingers, are connected to 3 atoms on the ball. Okay, well, the problem here is that the atoms that in your fingers, they're going right through the rope. In other words, like a bead on an abacus. Okay, so even if the atom was made of the same wire as the abacus, it wouldn't be able to touch the wire itself. It would slide through the wire as the wire opens up and builds up the atom that's going through it. Okay, the only thing that an atom in your finger can touch is another atom, and in this case, the atom of the ball. Okay, so you're sliding your atoms through the ropes that make up the atoms. You can't touch the rope itself. Okay, and so, and you say, well, how come I can't touch it? Well, you can't touch it because the atom is made of the same ropes it's sliding through. And then again, the problem that's always been, and the reason you use the notion of touch at all times, is that we've always identified objects with that which you can see and touch. And that's why people, mathematicians, they talk about going to the lab, running an experiment, because they want to see and touch. And the problem is Mother Nature's mediators cannot be seen or touched. Okay, you can't see the rope, you can't touch the rope, you can't see an atom. You can touch an atom, but you don't realize it. You can touch a hydrogen atom, but hopefully you can tell me whether you touched it or not. And the answer is no. You can't feel it. So you can't see or touch an atom. Okay, and so does that mean it's not there? No, you have to make an assumption. You know, here I'm breathing something. I can't see the atoms, but I go like that and I feel something going through my nose, something invisible. What is it, a ghost that's going through my nose? No, we make an assumption. We say, well, let's assume there's a bunch of little balls there, right? In our case, all interconnected little balls, right? And they're going through my nose. I'm taking them in with my nose. And so we make an assumption. Can I see the little balls, the oxygen balls there, nitrogen, whatever? No, I can't see them. They're not there because I can't see them. Is that the definition we're going to use, see and touch, for object and for exist? No, we have to make proper definition. We say an object is that which has shape. And existence, if we're going to say that it exists, we say that in addition it has location. And now we can use those words consistently to explain to someone else something in a rational manner, in a way that he can understand it if he's a rational human being. Okay. Okay, and final issue here. Fellow says, he says, how does the rope torquing light result in polarized, unpolarized, circularly polarized, etc. light? How does polarizing filter block torquing? Okay, so he wants to know about polarization. The first one you need to understand, which is already a monster, okay, without going into circularly polarized light and some of these other variations. Let's just go straight forward with polarization, light polarization, okay, linear polarization, okay, so that we understand the mechanism there, okay. And in one of my papers, published papers, okay, I had this picture which I bring to you so that you can see it, okay, so that you understand the mechanism, okay, and you have the X, Y, and Z on the left, and you have the X, Y, and Z on the right. The X, as you can see the reference at the bottom, X is polarized light, Y is the beam extinction, and the Z is going to be a 45-degree polarizer that's inserted between the two polarizing films there, okay? So let's go with the first one, X, okay, up on the top. You have unpolarized light. That means light comes in there. It's done usually with monochromatic light, light of a single frequency, okay, single wavelength. And it goes through this polarizer, this material, okay, that polarizes light, which we're going to illustrate it as being vertical. So all the atoms are vertically oriented. Okay, does the light go through the film? The answer is no. The light from the source is simply an atom that's tied to an atom of the polarizing film, of the film that's in front of it, of that panel. Okay, so we have one atom of the source, the light source, tied to one atom in the film. And it's going at a certain frequency. What is the atom in the film doing, in the polarizing material? What it's doing, it's relaying that signal to the polarizer behind it, which is also vertical. So both of these films or obstacles are vertically oriented. Their crystal structure is vertically oriented. So what it does is one film relays the signal to the atom of the next film, which relays it to the screen on the back. Okay, so that's essentially how unpolarized light works. It just goes straight through. What happens when we turn that polarizer, the one at A, sideways, 90 degrees? That's what's shown on Y. Okay, when you put it sideways, what happens is suddenly the light gets extinguished. You don't see it at the screen. And so the question is, why? Why don't you see it? Well, according to quantum mechanics, what's happening here is that if the light is coming unpolarized to the first polarizing film or obstacle, when you turn it around, what you're doing is you're blocking the horizontal component of the electromagnetic wave, which typically is the magnetic field. So what these people are saying is that what goes through is essentially only the electric field. They're saying that only the horizontal component goes through, and so you're just going to have one field. You have light that has only one field. No, you don't have an electromagnetic field. You either have electric or magnetic field, one or the other. That's what they're saying. And they say that's what blocks light. But the first problem is that there is no such thing as a transverse wave, and there are no such things as electric and magnetic fields. There are no such things as waves or fields, and so this explanation is nonsense. Okay? What happens when you put a third polarizer, that's a Z on the left still, and you put it in between A and B and you put it at a 45-degree angle? Well, what happens is you begin to reestablish the beam. Okay? And so the question is, why does the beam reappear? By putting a polarizing material at a 45-degree angle to the other two, one which is horizontal, the other one which is vertical. And on the right, you see the answer. That's with a rope model. Okay? And here you can see A and B are both, this is X on the right. You see A and B, the polarizing material, it's vertical. They both have their crystal structure oriented vertically. Okay? What happens when you turn A sideways? Well, what happens is you've changed the angle at which the light from the source goes to those atoms and how they are connected to the ones on the polarizing film at B that is still vertical. Okay, one is horizontal, the crystal structure, the other one has the crystal structure vertically. And that's why you block the beam. What happens when you insert a third polarizer, C, in between at 45-degree angles, and I'm talking about Z on the right? Well, what happens is you begin to reestablish the beam because, again, you are bringing back the rope to where it was originally. Okay, and again, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but a video is worth 1,000,000,000. And so I made a little device which I showed at our conference in Argentina. And it consists of this, very crude, but it explains the mechanism. And right now we're just looking at the mechanism so that you understand it. Okay, so here we have the polarizers. Okay, and I'm looking at the polarizers sideways. The ropes obviously represent light. Okay, so what happens when the beam comes through and light is unpolarized? Well, it shows up at the screen, you know, behind one of these polarizers. Okay, and so it just goes straight through because one polarizer, okay, is vertical and the other one's vertical. Their atoms are interconnected. Okay, and light essentially goes through from the source to the first polarizer, which I'll call this one here. Okay, and it goes through straight ahead to the other polarizer, this one here. Okay, goes right through, and what it's doing, the first polarizer is relaying the same signal to the atom it's connected to on the second polarizer. What happens when you turn one of the polarizers around? Okay, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to turn this one around. Let's do this one instead. So this way. Now what happens to the ropes? You can see now something's changed. Okay, the angles changed of the ropes. And I have a third one here, but I need a third hand to do it. But essentially, let's see if I can do it this way. I think I can do it that way. If you change this one, you can see the ropes coming back into where they were. Okay, so the angle is not as, in other words, you can see why a polarizer slowly, gradually extinguishes the beam here. Okay, you know, when you have, I do have it, but I didn't prepare it to show it. But if you take two polarizing lenses and you turn them around with respect to each other, you'll see that the beam slowly extinguishes itself. And here you can see why, okay, from a physical standpoint, at least our explanation with the ropes. If you turn that second one, let's see, yeah. If you turn that second one at a 45-degree angle, the ropes are not quite what they were before, which was, you know, completely like this. Okay, they're not completely screwed up. They're at this angle, at a lesser angle. Okay, and so the more you twist it, twist one polarizer with respect to the other, the more the beam becomes extinguished or less extinguished. Okay, that's in general terms the mechanism. There's more involved because remember, when you're doing this, you're also twisting each one of the ropes. In other words, you're giving it a different angle. Okay, so there's more involved. It's a lot more complicated than that. Before you can get to circularly polarized light, please try to understand the mechanism of linearly polarized light. Okay? And with it, I'll see you next time, which is what? On Wednesday. Bye-bye.